I fundamentally believe that we're in the midst of a monumental spiritual battle. That's at the core of where I come from on this. Biblical in nature. And the forces of darkness are aware that their time is limited, and they are doing everything in their power to keep us squashed and small and in the dark. And actually, ironically, the harder they try, the more people wake up.
Well, thanks for doing this.
Sure, it came as quite a surprise. You know, it was really interesting, Adrian, because I'd thought of reaching out to you. Well, I was going to reach out to you to say, you know, I really want to put out more of myself there, because I've been quite insular and sort of, there has been fear around exposing or revealing more of where I come from and my beliefs and stuff. And I was going to reach out just for support in growing that in me and coming to, you know, accept that it's not an ego-based thing, and that's not where I'm coming from, because there was always that little voice like, who are you? You know, who do you think you are? So it was quite synchronicitous actually that you reached out. So thank you very much. And I've never done anything like this before. So
fantastic. Thank you. And I just sense, I mean, I like these things to sort of flow. Right. And what I find is when you get two people together who can hold a very high degree of attention, something really interesting starts to happen, and some things come from that dialogue that couldn't be arrived at alone.
Yes.
And I sensed that getting to know you over the last few weeks, that you're all, well, I know you're already well along this journey of awakening. So I thought this would be a nice opportunity to explore.
I always felt like I just wanted to carry on talking to you for the evening. You know what I mean? There was something I was sort of holding back. So this is a great opportunity. Yeah, it has been, you know, I've been working at this consciously since I was 15 or 16 years old.
Wow.
I found myself in transcendental meditation in downtown Johannesburg, taking gifts to Maharishi.
Wow.
When I was 15 or 16, my background is nothing of that kind. You know, my family of origin thought I had lost it.
Yes.
But there was a calling from a very early age.
Did you know what that calling was?
It was just a deep fascination and longing for more, and a connection. You know, I was looking for a certain quality and depth of connection with myself and the world, and there was this surface stuff going on that never appealed particularly. So it's been a long road.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my sort of career in sort of working with addicts. And, you know, and that seems to be what you're describing there is almost kind of that addictive mindset that ordinary consciousness is not enough. It's that we know on a heartfelt level that there is more to life and the exploration of consciousness. And often when I work with addicts, you know, I say to them, I get it. I get why you want to get out of your head. In fact, I don't get people that don't want to get out of their head.
No,
the drive, my sense, is this evolutionary drive. It's the methodology I question.
Sure.
So I think it's interesting that you were drawn to meditation at that very early age. Where I suspect many people just awakening with more experimenting with other routes.
Yes, true. I mean, I had a very brief sort of dope period in my 20s, and alcohol's never appealed to me.
No.
Never been able to have more than one glass of wine.
That's a good thing.
It's incredible. But the culture that I grew up in, alcohol wasn't part of it at all. There's no reference to it really. It was about food. It was lovely.
Well, I think meditation is the answer. So I think ultimately meditation and awakening, I think, is the vehicle for this.
Sure. I think one of the catalysts for me, really, or what drew me to it is my emotional makeup, really. Very insanely sensitive to everything that's going on around me, and very easily affected. And I've always said I live in one of the most unpredictable climates, and I mean the climate in me, where I can be okay one minute, and then the next minute it's as if a storm rolls in and I'm sort of knocked sideways. And I had to find a lighthouse. I had to find a way of managing that, because it was so crippling and so all encompassing that I didn't really have much left for the rest of my life. I was managing my emotional state. And that's, I think, why I chose the job I chose, because I could manage my emotional state with others. And it was all about that.
And I think that's the skill in what you do. If you're not engaging with people on that level, then you're not really engaging with them.
Yes.
And that's the space where the healing happens. So like I say, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? That sensitivity is the vehicle for your healing, but we have to then manage the consequences of that ourselves, and that's often something that people pay less attention to.
That's true. I've had to learn that over the years. It's a steep learning curve, this work, putting yourself in different vibrational fields with people, and working to maintain your own. But I love my work, and I'm very grateful for the intimacy it offers on a daily basis. And to think that actually out of 7 billion people in the world, I might be the one who knows more about this person than anyone else. And that's incredible. There's no other relationship other than that hour a week or hour every couple of weeks. And it's very special to me.
It is.
Feels like a wonderful gift and way to spend my time.
What a beautiful, beautiful way to make a living.
It really is. Yeah.
But we have to deal with the consequences of that.
Yes, we do. And I think that over the last 2 years particularly, and over the last year particularly, I've had to really, really step into self-care mode.
Yes.
In a way I've never really engaged with it before. Knocked me very badly. And I reached depths of despair and desperation that I thought I'd gone there already. I thought I'd done that work. But this has really, I'm only now coming out the other end, and I'm starting to recognize the gifts in this, but it didn't feel that way for a long time.
No.
I didn't know how to be here or whether I wanted to be here. And slept a lot and managed a lot of anxiety, and also managed my practice.
It's been a very strange time, hasn't it?
Very strange.
And it's like I say, it's a time where the shadow comes to the surface. I think individually and collectively, that's what's happening. The challenge then is to process that and evolve and grow through that. It's experience of learning, or it can consume us and drag us down.
Absolutely. There's a sense in me that I think those of us who are aware, I have a sense that I've been prepared for this for a very long time.
People have said that to me.
It just feels that I used to say to the trainers in my psychotherapy training, this isn't what I'm going to be doing ultimately. I don't know what it is, but I have a strong sense that there's something more. And I think I'm starting to understand what that something more is.
It's
and I'm only too happy to participate. I'm only too happy to...
You haven't got any choice.
No.
You have no choice.
Have no choice. And actually that's quite freeing. because then I can just surrender
mm.
and go with it.
But like I say, it takes a lot of courage,
Mm.
because we're stepping outside of conventional wisdom.
Mm.
But look where conventional wisdom got us.
Oh, goodness. I think really, no, it takes tremendous courage. And yeah, I've always been an outlier, so this is nothing new.
Yeah.
But this takes it to a whole new level.
Yes. I think there's like I say, there's a very pressing need for this kind of work now.
Mm.
There's still relatively few people who are sort of awakening in the truest sense, but there's an awful lot now who are stirring.
Yes, I sense that.
And I think the thing that pushes people to jump is their own suffering.
Mm.
And the ego has a flaw built into it.
Sure.
In that ultimately it creates the suffering that brings about its own destruction.
Own demise. Yes.
And I think we're seeing that on an individual level. Yeah, and certainly over the last couple of years, people I've worked with for many years who like you are really very advanced in their practice, experiencing another depth to that
No
shadow.
question about it.
Yeah.
Another another layer being stripped away.
Yeah,
Actually, more than one.
And that, of course, is essential
Mm.
for this next shift in consciousness. And there's a very pressing need for people to help others through that process.
Mm. Mm.
Now, one of the lovely things about doing these podcasts is I get to speak to people who have been on this journey for a while.
Mm.
Because that really is what the Now Project is about.
Sure.
It's you're the project.
Yeah.
And you take what your consciousness, the level of mind you're able to access into what you're doing, and that transforms everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
It feels lovely to be able to speak from this place in me.
Yeah.
Obviously I do it, but to close ones and often to clients.
Yeah.
But this feels like I'm stepping out a little more.
Yeah, we can come into the open now, I think.
Yeah, no, it's time. I think it would. I think it's going to benefit me hugely as part of my self-care, just to speak my truth out there, and people want to hear it or take it, or I don't really care.
Well, and this is what I've always found. I've always been completely uncompromising with this because I can't live any other way.
Yeah.
And
the price is too high, isn't it?
It is too high.
Yeah,
it is too high. And what I found is actually you attract the people that want that, and that's so much easier than working with people who don't.
Exactly. It's been an interesting ride, practice-wise, because obviously, I carried on working pretty much at the same rate during lockdowns. I just went online, and the majority of my clients didn't get the bigger picture.
No.
That was challenging in itself, because I felt like I was constantly having to just hold back. And it's in a confusing place to get to, because one of the premises of psychotherapy is to support people in their sovereignty and in their authenticity and in their power. And I felt as if I was falling short of that.
So you are self-censoring yourself.
Yes. And also I wasn't sharing where I was coming from and giving them the opportunity to step out of the narrative and have options. So I had a lot to come to terms to there in that, accepting that's not my role. No. What my role is to join people where they're at in themselves and where they are in their evolutionary journey, and to be with that.
And that does shift people.
It does.
Yeah, so paradoxically, that acceptance of where they are helps them move on.
Yes. So it's been, and also just sharing with every client the same stuff. Experiencing the same manifestation in the world. They'd come to me with their stuff, but it wasn't what I was living through.
No.
And suddenly we were all living through the same drama. So there's been a lot of shifts. That's been good, though.
Interesting. What's your take on the last couple of years?
I fundamentally believe that we're in the midst of a monumental spiritual battle. That's at the core of where I come from on this. Biblical in nature. And the forces of darkness are aware that their time is limited, and they are doing everything in their power to keep us squashed and small and in the dark. And actually, ironically, the harder they try, the more people wake up.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So I see it as that big. I'm really very disinterested in the nitty-gritty of it, the day-to-day. Is there a virus? Isn't there this, that, all sorts of things that just don't interest me. All I'm interested in is raising my personal vibration to the best I can, so that when the tsunami hits, which it's starting to, I'm grounded. So this is, I think, the biggest opportunity that humanity has ever had. Is my take on it. I didn't feel that for a while. I've only recently got to that. I didn't feel the gift in it. I went to the depths of hell. I'm not going to pretend.
Pretty dark.
Oh, so dark. So dark. And so angry. So angry that my freedoms and liberty and that anyone thinks they can tell me what I need to do or should do with my own body was just absolutely a no-go. And a lot of frustration and sadness.
Yes.
But this has to happen.
It does have to happen.
It has to happen. There's no other way through. I don't know about you, but I've had a massive breakdown in my life, personal breakdown. I was in psychiatric care for a while.
Yeah, me too.
And I shattered. But I had to shatter because the old version was way past its sell-by date. It was not serving me or anyone else. And the only way through was that level of dissolving. So it was a breakthrough, but at the time it was hideously terrifying. I really lost my mind.
I think we're seeing that collectively in the world, aren't we?
And that's what I'm saying. It's now happening globally. And countries go through it, families go through it, individuals go through it. Now it's global. And that's what makes this so exciting.
It does make it exciting, doesn't it? Because this is, something that we all have in common.
I'm sure you'd agree that the systems and what we had in place before this dismantling was just not good enough.
No,
it wasn't working.
It was a slave system.
Oh God,
driven through our perception, through our minds being controlled. But when you have a large proportion of people, who's now happening, maybe 10%, even more, whose minds can't be controlled because they see beyond the deception of their perception, then all these structures come into view. And in the seeing of them, they dissolve. I think we're already seeing that, aren't we? How many people actually trust the media anymore, or trust their politicians, or
I don't know.
or even their doctors.
True. God, yes. That's one thing I stopped trusting a very long time ago. So I never had to dismantle that one. That's been in place for years.
A terrifying prospect for most people.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people won't survive the transition, which is, it is what it is. I don't think death is the end of the world.
No.
And I don't go into that drama place with it because, we're all going to go. It's just a matter of when and how. And just make peace with that.
And contribute what you can now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just engage. I mean, I'm really, the level of appreciation I have for my aliveness now is at a new level. And the small things that, just really, I need far, far less in order to be, just in myself. That's all I want.
Because then you have everything.
Everything. And my life's been stripped back a lot.
Isn't that lovely?
It's so lovely. So lovely. Such a gift. It's really beautiful to talk this way because it just fills me. I can get in touch with gratitude, which I think is the most wonderful emotion. The best feeling in the world is gratitude.
And it projects a whole new world into being.
It really does. And I feel extremely grateful. And there are days when I suffer, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
So that's where I'm at on what's going on globally and what's been going on in the last year or two. Just come back to now. There's nothing else to do.
No, unlike you, I think this is actually, war has already been won. A lot of the harm has been done.
Yes.
And we're going to see the consequences of that. We already are, aren't we, with the economy and sickness and whatever. We've got to work through the consequences of that.
We do. And we're going to have to be very strong and solid.
But I'm already working on the recovery. I've been very active in the resistance since the start of this.
Yeah, you've said so.
And that made me quite unpopular in the process. But
sure.
It's not about that now. No, I think that war has already been won.
I think that phase is over. Yes,
and we're now looking at how we rebuild and restructure. I used to travel up to London quite often with this lovely old gentleman on the train who's sat in the House of Lords, real proper aristocrat. But a really lovely old boy. A liberal peer he was, and whenever I got the chance to sit with him, I would because I just learned something.
Sure.
And I remember one day traveling up to London, and I was telling him what was wrong with the system, and this was wrong, and that was wrong, and he just looked at me and he said, "Adrian, there's nothing wrong with the system. It's the mindset of the people who are running it that's the problem. It doesn't matter how perfect the system. If the mindset is corrupted, the system will be flawed."
Yeah.
And he's hit the nail on the head. It's not a question of tearing down structures. It's a question of shifting the state of mind of those people running those structures.
There's no shadow of a doubt. It is a waste of time to try and bring them down.
There's no point.
No point. I mean, what's going on and trying to get Boris Johnson out, I don't care. I mean, he's only going to be replaced by another. I mean, I don't know what to call them, sort of whatever.
No, but
someone similar.
Somebody similar, another bogus authority.
Yes. And it's pointless.
It is pointless. So it's a question of shifting the mindset. And that, in a way, is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
That actually each person holding this state of mind, this state of being, affects the people around them. They affect their workplace. They affect their families. They affect their communities, and that's the recovery. I think
that's where the work is. There's nothing else to do. I couldn't agree more.
Taking back the authority.
Yeah.
From the individual, families, communities, and building from that place.
Yeah. One of the great comforts I take is that they can't get me.
No.
I'm not, they cannot take me in. And that feels so incredibly authentically powerful, because it's not a destructive power or ego-based thing in me.
No.
It's just, there's a sort of vibratory sort of, I don't know what to call it, where they cannot penetrate.
No.
And I think we're so blessed to have that. I mean, that seems to me like lifetimes of work. There's a shield around me, if you like, in relation to that, that just bounces off.
Did you get that sense that you've been called for this time?
Yes, very much so. Kicking and screaming.
Yes, absolutely.
seriously kicking and screaming, and often not wanting to be here and saying this is just too much. Can I check out? I want to go back to source. I want to dissolve into oneness. Please leave me alone.
Yeah.
I've been very ambivalent about being embodied for most of my life, if I'm honest. I mean, and I'm starting to make peace with it and just know that I have no choice and just get on with it now. No room for that victim mentality. There's no room for it.
It's our form that brings us into this world, and that's that's for a purpose.
Utterly miraculous.
Yeah, and that's for a purpose too.
Yeah.
No, a lot of people I speak to say that they've been called for this time. And there is a possibility of a whole new age. You imagine a political system that actually cared about people, or a financial system that created wealth rather than a parasitic energy vampire type system.
An energy of lack, I call it.
Energy of lack. Yeah.
There's such abundance in this world.
There is.
Oh my God. And in every sense.
In every sense.
And I get so excited when I imagine humans living in that vibration of abundance.
Yeah.
It's very exciting to me. I hope that I'm around to see it. I don't know how long this is going to take. It doesn't really matter. But
I've kind of sensed that it's going to be soon.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I sense it's going to be soon.
Yeah.
It reaches a critical mass, and then that happens.
Yeah.
I remember reading something by a hypnotherapist who was talking about the sort of mass formation psychosis that we've seen, and he was saying 20% of people are completely immune to it. 20% will be deeply possessed. It's the
I found that amusing.
It's the 60% in the middle that bring about the shift. Where do they move towards?
I'm meeting a lot more of those.
Me too.
Yeah. In my own family. Actually.
Yeah, and that's definitely happening.
Yeah,
and that's what brings the momentum.
No question about it. So, yeah, exciting time.
So we're in for an interesting ride.
Yeah, well, we're on it already, I think.
Yes.
Roller coaster like. It's all good at the end of the day, and that's why I like-minded company, because I get back in touch with the positivity and hope that I can lose a grip on. I can read one headline and it's like everything can sink. So I need more like-minded company around me, and I do make sure I get that, and or else I'd rather be alone.
Yeah, no, I agree. But there's a tendency to isolate ourselves a little bit too much, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't want to engage in the world at all in the last year.
There is a shift happening, and people are being attracted to each other. I just got a little WhatsApp group you set up. How active that is already.
Yes, already.
And there's a lot of people calling out for this kind of thing.
Very much so.
And I think that, as I say, it's very important. You can hold that vibration together, that increases the power exponentially in everyone. And that's quite an attractive thing to be drawn to.
Once again, it's a gift, to be drawn to that or even interested. Yeah.
Tell me about your psychotherapy.
In general.
Yeah, how you work and how you operate.
Okay, well, I trained. I've been seeing clients for 22 years now, 23 years. I trained in integrative humanistic psychotherapy, which is the opposite of psychoanalytical psychotherapy. I don't know how much you know about it, but the analysis is concerned with why.
Yes.
And humanistic is fundamentally concerned with how.
Yeah.
How do we live? How do we respond? How are we in the world? And learning skills to manage our ego selves, really. And I was very blessed to find an incredible training that no longer exists in Finsbury Park. And it took about 6 years. I had my breakdown in the midst. So it took about
part of the training.
Yes, it was all part of the training. So it took about 6 or 7 years to actually get an accreditation. which I really felt I earned. And I see a cross-section of people. Fundamentally, it's about self-love. I once went to a talk, I forget the guy's name, Tony, someone spoke about non-duality. I don't know if you've come across someone like that. And he said psychotherapy is fantastic in making the prison more comfortable.
I love it.
I love it too, because it's just so spot on.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time I'm making the prison more comfortable. I'm helping people to make the cell that they've put themselves in, because they don't know they've done that, more comfortable. We can find some plush furnishing, some cushions, window dressing, and even some lovely meals.
So sparky
but fundamentally, they're still in the ego prison.
Yeah.
But that's necessary. I think that's part of the process.
I think that's the best that most people could hope for.
Really,
it's a comfortable prison.
It's a comfortable prison. I was very, very grateful for that piece of information. I thought it was brilliant. So yeah, I'm decorating prisons. and not with everyone. There's some people who the doors open.
Yeah.
You know, the gates open. They've realized they've got the key. And fundamentally, it's about self-love and self-acceptance. And you know, fundamentally, what I found so fascinating about the psychotherapeutic process is two words that ironically come from psychoanalysis is transference and projection. Because everyone is a mirror. Everyone, every single opportunity and every single person we meet is a mirror. And we don't see anyone else. We see ourselves.
We do.
And the people who know that are so much easier to work with.
They don't blame the reflection.
They don't blame the reflection. And actually, it's very amusing sometimes when you see people blaming the reflection. I want to scream and say, you're doing this. No one's doing this to you. You know? And that goes right back to birth sometimes. You know? We don't know any better.
No.
Or
even beyond birth.
Or even beyond birth. Yeah, really. I mean, you know, ancestral stuff as well.
Some of these neuroses go back generations.
Generations, yeah. I've certainly had my fair share of actually in this last year or two, I had to face stuff that I think my ancestors never really faced at the level that I met it. I mean, I come on my father's side. He's a Holocaust survivor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's been understandably obsessed with it his entire life, and most of the family, that side of the family, never spoke about it. He just read books all the time on the Holocaust. He still does page through them. You know, he's in an old age home, and he pages through them, looking at the images, trying to make sense of this. And I just when the big push was on for the intervention, and what was being done to people who weren't going along, it just pushed every button. And I found myself rather terrified. I was, you know, convinced I was going to land up in a camp. They were going to put me away because I wasn't, you know, I was diseased. I was dirty.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the way they were trying to take it, wasn't it?
Try it. I don't. That hasn't worked. Thank you.
It hasn't worked, has it?
Hasn't worked.
And I think that's really interesting. I think that's what's kind of one of the comforting things come out from me. See, that's not in people's nature, is it?
No, not at all. Yeah. I've noticed I've digressed from my psychotherapy, but so 23 years now of working with people, and I also ran anger workshops for a while, which was an incredibly powerful experience, because anger is often the top crust. And if you find a way of acknowledging and expressing in a safe way, then you get to the layers underneath, which is more often than not grief. Yeah. And I used to see this happening within a 3-day period, which was incredible. So, any other questions?
I'm just interested in that historic trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is, on my classes, I think what they're supposed to be about, I think it's about 250,000 Jews in London.
Mm.
And I think they've all been on my course.
Get all surprised.
But there does seem to be, in my experience.
Well, I mean, it's been trauma for generations.
Yes, but
you know,
but that becomes an opportunity at a point.
Yeah. Ironically, though, what I found very challenging to get my head around is the level of compliance in Israel.
Yes, that's disturbing, isn't it?
That has been so disturbing for me. It's been incredible. I mean, there's this wonderful physician. His name's Dr. Vladimir Zelenko. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was Trump's and Bolsonaro's doctor.
They've been calling this out right
from the start. He's a Hasidic Jew from upstate New York. And he came up with a protocol and it basically saved people's lives by God knows how many. But they didn't go into hospital and they weren't given the protocol in the hospital. So they came out of there. And
they skipped the remdesivir.
Yeah, he's got that very dark sort of ironic Jewish humor. And he said, if China's looking, sorry, I find this very funny and it's also awful, but if China's looking for a port in the Middle East, on the Mediterranean, Israel's their place because there'll be no one left there. Oh, God. Jesus. But who knows? But it is that serious.
No, that I found strange too.
Very strange.
The exception of that, and I think fear does strange things to people. You know, one of the most disturbing facets the last couple of years for me is just to see the level of cruelty from people that I've always regarded as caring. You know, I mean, the police actually have done very well in my estimation.
I couldn't agree more. Very impressive.
And I think, you know, we thank God for the British police.
Really?
Because they've actually really handled themselves very professionally, I think. And I've been toe to toe with them. You know, but I think they've handled themselves very professionally with great compassion and wisdom.
No question about it. And actually, it's the only place in the Western world where that's the case.
No, and we would thank God for the British police.
Really.
Because they saved us there. So, but some of the professions I've been very disappointed with are education and medicine. You know, I was a social worker for many years. I worked in child protection. And one of the most disturbing cases I had, it still troubles me now, was a little girl called Angela, and she was about 6 or 7. And her mother clearly had sort of pretty awful mental health issues. But this poor child was told she was sick. You know, and from a very early age, she had this wrong with her and that wrong with her, and she underwent unnecessary tests and medical procedures and
Munchausen and stuff.
Yeah, she was told she was diseased, that she could infect other people and make them ill, and it was the most appalling psychological abuse. And eventually, we had no choice but to pursue a care order with this child. Wasn't that exactly what teachers have been doing up and down the country for the last 2 years?
No question about it. Just going
the most appalling psychological abuse without ever questioning any of it. Because if they questioned it for a second, they'd realise that all of these measures were not only abusive, but they're entirely pointless.
Pointless and make no sense whatsoever.
And that scares me.
Yeah.
That these people were so complicit in this.
And that people are leaving their kids in their care.
No, but these are good people. These are good people.
Yeah, absolutely. They go into the profession from the right place.
Yeah, you don't do that because you're a nasty person. I'm sure there's the odd one that just hates children and wants to inflict harm on them, but I'm sure they're very much in the minority.
Yeah. The other thing I've been very, very surprised by and disappointed by is the psychotherapeutic world. There are very few of me.
Yes.
Very, very few. I mean, I was very blessed to find on one of the Telegram channels an awakened therapist site. And I've landed up in a supervision group with 4 other awake therapists, and that has been such a revelation, because you need to talk about this stuff in supervision, and you can't talk about it with a supervisor who doesn't understand.
Your professional body might ban you.
Yes, yeah, it hasn't come to that, but it could.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wouldn't want to be
even
part of any professional body that would have me.
No. I've actually all my work is word of mouth now. If I left the professional body, it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to me. But I'm putting myself out there by talking to you in a way that I haven't before. And I really asked myself, do I care? And I honestly don't. Honestly don't. So
I think that's where we're at, isn't it?
Yeah.
That actually, even those structures have to go.
Yeah.
Even those structures have to go. And I've did quite a lot of work with a very, very bright young lady who's a sort of postdoctorate psychologist. Really, really bright, intellectually, but also spiritually awake. And just exploring with her, what the possibilities of a mind like that are unfettered by convention and rules and dogma and accepted versions of reality. You put those two intelligence together, and there's no you couldn't imagine the possibilities.
No, those are the very people they're trying to silence. Big time. Cancel.
But they can't.
They can't. No, they keep. Yeah, they bubble up somewhere else.
Yeah. The smart people on the outside of the system.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to explore?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. Not particularly. No, sort of in a very quiet place in myself. There's not much going on in my head.
Isn't that nice?
It's rather nice. I'm just here with you.
Yeah.
And I can feel myself sometimes pushing to find something, but it's a void.
Yeah.
Well, in the void, I'd rather be in the void.
Absolutely. Being in your head is not a long-term option, is it?
No. Do you have any more questions for me?
No, I don't think so. I think it's been really, really, really helpful. Yeah, maybe where we go from here, because I think you've been pointing towards something. How we pull people together, how we start to energetically grow this movement.
I think, quite frankly, that it's a very organic process, and it's much bigger than us. And it has its own momentum. And every time I've tried to intervene or try to shape something, I just get exhausted.
Yeah,
is the truth of it.
No, I think
I feel myself depleted.
Yeah.
So I think the only way forward is surrender.
Yeah.
But not giving up. And people often confuse surrender with giving up. They couldn't be more different. And I like the phrase giving in, because you're giving in to something in you.
Yeah.
So it's about surrender and giving inward.
Yeah.
And that's just being available.
Engaging with the flow.
Engaging with the flow, and it'll all it's much bigger than us, and it'll all take care of itself. And that doesn't seem naive, but that's where I come from.
No, that doesn't mean that you're not called upon to work very hard and to help things happen at times. But that's within the flow.
I think even when I'm sleeping, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I think energetic. I've been sleeping sometimes about over 12 hours out of every 24.
Wow.
And I think I'm just being plugged into some sort of generator and being prepared and doing the work from a sort of a different level.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all that we can do. I'm not a particularly political person. I have no desire to go in and start making groups and stuff.
No.
Injustice I'll fight for, but and I have been, but I'm not particularly political. So we go with the flow.
Yeah.
But our flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's happening anyway.
It's happening. It's big. As I said, it's bigger than us, and we just got to go along for the ride, and just be very conscious and aware and awake on the ride. I mean, that's our personal work.
And enjoy the journey.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, it's been a tough 2 years, but I've met the most incredible people.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, and actually had the most fantastic time.
Me too. And I'm sitting here talking to you. This would never have happened.
No.
Really, it's happening
Yeah,
now. I mean, it fascinates me that I was drawn to your course.
It's funny, but I'm getting a different group of people now.
Okay.
Now they're not smaller groups, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's great because I get to play with some new stuff. But the people who are coming are really, really awake.
That's fantastic.
I mean, that last group, well, they're fantastic.
Really special.
Yeah, as soon as
the
they
energy in there,
immense, isn't it?
Yeah, the quality of silence was remarkable.
Yeah.
You know, really.
Yeah.
You know, there are different types of silences, and that one I just bathed in.
No, they just came in, sat down, and bang, they were there, weren't they?
Gone. Absolutely. Well, arrived.
Yeah, arrived. Yeah.
Yes.
Which makes life very easy.
And
a lot more fun. That's when the teacher really flows and he goes to interesting places.
Yeah. So I trust in a bigger agenda that is all about love, light, and beauty. And I also know that the human spirit is no one can. No,
it's a done deal.
It's a done deal. And what's interesting to me is the powers that are trying to take us down. They don't understand that.
They don't.
They've got no spirit, I don't think, and they don't know what soul is, and they don't know what love is, and they don't know what connection is, and they don't know what intimacy is.
Well, it's not logical.
No. And can you imagine that fate? Oh my God.
Do you know, I think I've resisted that all of my life, you know, which is why I've always been self-employed. Because I can't subject my life to somebody else's will.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
I literally can't. It feels totally self-abusive. I will not do it.
No, you have to.
So
you follow your calling or you suffer.
100%. So yeah. You know, it's interesting, but I'm working on finding empathy for even those people.
Well, they're victims too.
They are victims, and actually, in the big scheme of life and in the big cosmic game and the play of consciousness, they have their role.
I think we're all.
They have their role in our awakening, don't they?
One of the big weapons that used against us is separation. Us and them. You know, there is no them.
Yeah.
We're just dealing with people who are doing their very best with the level of consciousness that they have.
100%.
And that's all they can do.
Yeah.
And they're not against us.
And we have to fight against it.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. We can't just sit there and say, oh, you've got your karma to live, I'll just sit and
No,
watch.
we have to bring them on board.
We do.
And you don't bring people on board by attacking them and telling them they're wrong. You bring them on board by showing them what's right.
Yeah, and
they're naturally attracted. And I think that's happening.
Yeah, I think if you go into the psychopathic realm or the sociopathic realm, it's harder. I don't think they're available to that level.
No, I'd say there's 20% that can't be changed.
They cannot be shifted. And that's the worst karma of all. That is a really awful field to find yourself.
Yeah, well, it's suffering anyway, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So there's your empathy.
There's my empathy. Yeah. And I have to dig deep.
Thank you so much for this, Saul. I think we got some.
You're very welcome.
We got some really lovely stuff there.
Yeah, I'm so pleased, Adrian, and I'll be in touch. We'll be in touch.
You're awesome.
And take good care. Thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate it.
Bless you.
Take care.
All the best, buddy. Cheers.